Live! Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Rufino. This is Are You Serious Sports? We hope that you are making it a good one. We know that we are as well. Let me start off by saying this. You're going to see an Ohio State shirt. Don't freak out. My allegiance has not, nor will ever switch from LSU. Never. However, the simple fact remains, I lost a bet to an Ohio State fan. I said that LSU would go above 50% or 500 on the season. So I am a man of my word, as you will see throughout the show tonight. I am wearing an Ohio State shirt as a part of my bet that I lost on a live stream, an LSU live stream, no less. I lost my bet. I lost my bet. Dylan Landry says, Blake, what are you wearing? So I hope that clears that up. I hope that it clears it up that I have lost a bet to Bucknut29 on Twitter, a.k.a. Mr. Josh Rogers, who will come in the stream. Let me tell you where I started getting nervous. Mississippi State, yeah, maybe a little. But Missouri games started coming around and like, this ain't looking good, though. And then we went, then we played South Carolina. TJ Finley came in, and I thought to myself, oh, man. I ain't going to be wearing no shirt no more. Better yet, my man's going to be wearing an LSU shirt. Heck yeah. And then the week after, we played Auburn. So I'm a man of my word. I have to come on an LSU show, the AYS LSU show, and I have to wear an Ohio State shirt. Even if LSU wins Saturday, we won't be 500 or just even. Matthew, above 500. That was the bet. That LSU would go at least 6-4 was my bet. That was my bet, and I lost it. Speak of the devil himself. Mr. Bucknut, Mr. Josh Rogers, you're a good man, Blake. This is the individual that I lost the bet to. I'm ashamed of myself, y'all. I'm ashamed of myself. But what I'm not ashamed about is that we do have a good show in store for you tonight. So, sure, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. But I'm a man of my word. I got to do it. Either way, I want your LSU score predictions. Get them in the comments. We'll put them up there. If you want your name on the screen, you want to talk about what the score prediction for LSU Ole Miss will be, put it up in the comments, and we will get it up there. Also, don't forget to hit that like and share on Facebook and Twitter. You can hit the retweet. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Are You Serious Sports, and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to rate and subscribe there as well with our good partners that we graciously love to death, our good partners over at Believe. But before we get to all of your comments and everything, you know what time it is. Let's get over to my good friends at GM Varno & Sons. GM Varno & Sons has faithfully been serving your Denham Springs and Baton Rouge area for over 62 years. With your highly trained technicians, there's absolutely nothing that they can't do. RV repair, big rig overhauls, motorhome chassis, truck repair, routine maintenance, tire repair, tires rotations, tire sales. No job is too big or too small over at GM. Give them a call today at 225-664-9992. That's 225-664-9992. And tell them Blake Rufino sent you by. Also, for the number one real estate team in all of the North Shore, go to team.kw.com. That's team.kw.com. Tell them Blake Rufino sent you by. If you want to sorry, guys. We had a phone call. I had to delete it. But if you want a interview or if you want to meet with one of them today, got lost there, go to your home team. Give them a call today at 985-467-7355. That's 985-467-7355. Tell them Blake Rufino sent you by. Okay, let's see. We got some more right here. Also, I forgot to mention Zach Pearson, the great LSU ex-pitcher. Zach Pearson is going to be stopping by at 7:15. Also, our good friend, the intern, has returned. He has blossomed his wings. Mr. Jonathan Rifkind from Just Recruiting is going to be joining us as well. Let's get to some of these. Blaine says, LSU 44, Ole Miss 38. I like it. Now, Ole Miss had some big news today. Their two top weapons on offense, Elijah Moore being the biggest, have opted out today. That changes everything for me, y'all. Changes everything. It looks like Max Johnson, who was injured there at the end of the game, looks like he's going to be ready to go. But Ty Davis Price for LSU is not going to be able to go along with Chase and Hines. So you do have some injuries on both teams. You definitely have some injuries. But nevertheless, I think that LSU is going to win this game myself. Joseph says, LSU 44, Ole Miss 38. I like it. Cade says, LSU 41, Ole Miss 38. Okay. Matthew Daigle says, LSU 35, Ole Miss 21. I'd like that too. Ooh, Seth coming in strong. It's Seth, I don't know what's worse, me wearing the Ohio State shirt or the score predictions picking Ole Miss. But look, I dig it, brother. I dig it. Seth Scott on Facebook Live says 52-38 Ole Miss. Unfortunately, I don't know if Ole Miss is going to be able to score 52 points. Look, they lead the SEC in yardage. You can't take that away from them. 479 yards per game. But like I've been preaching for so long, yards don't mean nothing if you can't score. If yards were everything, they'd be undefeated. Now, what happens now in the late part of this week, their top two weapons opt out. I would have assumed that those guys have been practicing a little bit this week as well. So I'm not going to say LSU is going to dominate them, but I think when you have your two big weapons go out, there's something to be looking there. Now, do they have some younger guys that can come in and dominate for Ole Miss? We'll have to see. But LSU's defense has shown that they can play really good, and they have a lot of guys that will be focused. Roy says LSU 35, Ole Miss 21. I like that, Roy. Kate, you already had one. Bugnut, the man I lost the bet to for the Ohio State shirt. He says LSU wins 38-27. He has spoken. Jamie says LSU 41, Ole Miss 28. I dig it. Adam Parr says that shirt, brother. Look, man, I lost a bet. I might have to pin this in the comments that I lost a bet. Do you guys think that I need to pin this in the comments that I lost a bet? Let me put this in here. I lost. No. We don't want to print. Cancel. I lost a bet to a Ohio State fan seat shirt. All right, there we go. And I can pin that comment. There we go. Pin that sucker. There we go. Seth Scott says Lane is going to throw the whole kitchen sink at us. LSU clearly has shown a surplus of busted coverages. Yeah, he's definitely going to throw the entire kitchen sink at us. Seth, I completely agree there. And it's at Orgeron. And it's LSU. Look, this is their biggest game. Because Mississippi State, although maybe yes, it is a big rivalry. Yes, it's a big rivalry. But at the end of the day, at the very, very end of the day, I think that they would want to end the season just like LSU wants to end the season. They want to end the season by a victory. Tracy Wynn says, Buckeyes, no. I did. See the comments. Adam Parr, look at him sucking up to his father-in-law right here with this pick. Look at him. Man. You know, you guys coming over for Christmas, and you got to come to the Ruffino household. Yeah, I don't know if y'all coming, but if you are, you're more than welcome. We'll have alcohol and everything. But look at him sucking up to to his father-in-law here, who is an Ole Miss fan. He says Ole Miss 45, LSU 38. I dig it. Let's see. Do we have some other ones? Joseph says defense has improved. I'm sure LSU will eat away at time of possession and keep Lane twiddling his thumbs. My wife would kill me. Yeah, she would kill you. All right, everybody joining the show. We greatly appreciate it. Do us a favor, hit the like and hit the share. Mr. Zach Pearson is going to be joining us in about 2 minutes. Looking forward to having him on. Kate says, got my 1,500 today betting my Florida buddy that Tigers would win. Well, you better pray to sweet baby Jesus. You better be like your boy Ricky Bobby and Talladega Nights. Dear 7-pound, 8-ounce sweet baby Jesus. Because if you betting that kind of money against that Florida's going to win, I don't know about that, dog. Florida ain't beating Alabama. It ain't happening. Blaine Smith, Curry and Emery going to have a huge, huge day. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Look, I'm going to give you some keys before we get to Mr. Zach Pearson here. Look, I agree with some of you. LSU has to run the football. LSU's going to have to establish the run and keep the lane train off. Look, Matt Corral has a really big arm. Sometimes, and he's not Patrick Mahomes. That's not what I'm about to say here. But his throwing motions are impeccable. He can throw it sidearm. He can throw it from over the top. He can move and just really, really hum that sucker. I really like Matt Corral. I think that Lane Kiffin coming to Ole Miss has been a big deal for him, and you got to keep him off of the field. You have to. Now, the only thing, if I were Matt Corral, that I'd be really nervous about is if they can't run the football. Now, they can, and Lane really, really, really loves to run the football. That's one thing that everybody doesn't really understand with Lane Kiffin. They see the long passes. They see the innovation. But what people don't fully understand is that Lane Kiffin really likes to run the football. That's one staple that he's taken everywhere he's gone, and you got to be careful with that. So you're going to have to stop the run. And if you don't stop the run, it's going to be a long night because Matt Corral is going to tee off on you. Defensively, Ole Miss is Rudy Poo, as we like to say here on the show. Rudy Poo. LSU is going to be able to move the football. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're going to put up a lot of points, but Ole Miss's defense is boo-boo. Real boo-boo. So I think if you're able to just keep on the field and run the football and run it down their throats and tire out a really inexperienced and not that good of a defense, you're going to win big. But my prediction, my real score prediction will come out Saturday as they always do. Okay, let's get over to Mr. Zach Pearson, who is in with us. Let's get to one more. 34-24, the Tiger says Dylan Landry. I like that. Okay, before we get to Mr. Zach Pearson, guys, don't forget to go see my good friend, Mr. John Patton, over at Area Home Lending. Oh, I muted my mic. There we go. Guys, if you're looking to save money on the mortgage that you have now or even doing that cash out refi, the timing has never been better. Get in touch with John Patton today at Area Home Lending, 225-663-2500. It's 225-663-2500. And tell him Blake Ruffino sent you by. Mr. Zach Pearson, what's happening, Big Daddy?
What's going on, man? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. I greatly appreciate you joining the show with us tonight, as always, on your Thursday time slot. Zach, I got to be honest, and I sent you the questions today, but I got one off-script one. I'm
okay with that.
As you see, I have an Ohio State shirt on, right? So I lost a bet.
Yeah.
Have you ever lost a bet where you had to do something and you're like, man, I just really don't want to do it, but you have to kind of like man up anyway and do it?
Nothing too bad. I've actually been on the good end of a few of those bets, but my wife and I have a running one where so the high school that she went to, their like big rival is where my dad went to school. So we have this running bet where whichever team wins that football game that year, we have to wear that team's colors the following year. So we just go to the game every year and we're either both wearing blue or red, and we get to like do it that way because we're going to stop on both sides. So one of us has to kind of take it. But that's pretty much like I don't have many like standing ones. I did see the one guy in there that said he won the 1,500 on the LSU Florida game. That's a ballsy bet, my man.
Oh, I know. Look, I would not bet LSU this year if my life depended on it. Like, I betted the LSU Vandy game, and because I thought that LSU would just turn it on. I thought their offense was really good, and I didn't think Vandy would score. But outside of that, I'm not betting LSU at all. I'm not betting them Saturday, even though Elijah Moore and another player for Ole Miss is leaving and opting out. Zach, I just can't. I'm the kind of person, Zach, I can't bet on the team that I root for. Emotions get the better of me. Is that the same with you if you ever do that?
Oh, absolutely. I refuse to bet on Saints or LSU games because I'm too much of a homer, and I can't, like, unbiased judge the game. I'm like, oh, well, of course we're going to win. Of course.
Well, I know, and that's kind of the thought process of me too. I'm like, I justify it in my head if I ever make that bet. Now, yes, I bet a little bit on LSU Clemson. I was like, let's go all in. Forget it, screw it.
That's different, though. Yeah, that's right. Different, though. That's just like putting your money where your mouth is for a national championship. That's one thing. Like that's makes it more exciting that way.
Yes, indeed. All right, Zach. Look, LSU had a big victory Saturday. Huge. I mean, it was funny because look, the last 2 weeks we talked about the underdog, right? Like, hey, the underdog never really wins. But LSU did that I was really surprised about. They went out there and fought. How surprised were you that, look, just during the whole game, that LSU had a lot of fight and they came out victorious against the Gators?
I would say surprised. I think more, I guess surprised is the word, more, but like pleasantly surprised. Like is the thing that we've been asking to see the whole time. Like, I don't care if you win or lose. I just don't want it to feel like we were getting rolled over. And I felt like for the Florida game, we just finally got to see what it looked like whenever this roster, who has supreme talent top to bottom, what it looks like when this roster can just throw any one of their players on the field willing to fight. That's the outcome that we can get. So I think it kind of answered a lot of questions in terms of how good are we really? I think the answer was really, really good. We just had things not go our way so far this season. But that Florida game was awesome. Really fun to watch.
I thought so too. And you know what's interesting, Zach, from my perspective, is don't tell me that you can't go out there Saturday and beat Ole Miss now, right? Like,
yeah.
A lot of people are saying, well, this is all on Florida. You know, Florida messed up. Florida didn't do this. Florida didn't do that. Well, no, when you have a pick six and then you intercept another guy twice on a crazy interception, and then you have a fumble, and then you really go down there and score. Look, what was Florida to do there? It's not like LSU doesn't have talent, but the biggest thing that was surprising to a lot of people was the play of Max Johnson. Okay, what did you see from that true freshman in Max Johnson, and how impressed were you about his game?
I liked his game a lot. I thought he was making all the plays that we needed him to make. I thought we were able to move the ball really well, and I thought that defensively we were making every possible play imaginable. And like you brought up, you know, Florida may have lost that game. That's absolutely true. I'm okay with admitting it. The thing is, when you're in a game like that, let's say you're the Florida in that situation, you have things to play for in that situation. You can't lose the way that LSU was last year. And I think that what's important is there's a saying that we used to always use, but don't let the coward get brave, right? So if you're that much better, you come out, you step on their throats, you send them home with their loss, and you keep it stepping. Florida did not do that. They made every mistake imaginable all the way down to the final drive, and they deserved to lose that game. Were they the better roster? Probably so. We had a bunch of 19-year-olds on the field, but they let that LSU roster keep their bravery. They let them feel like they were in the game. And then when it came down to where it was a 50-50 chance, they went and won the game for them. So, I thought that the offense looked good. I thought the defense showed us something that made me extremely excited for the next 2 or 3 seasons. And I'm feeling good about it. I think that with a win against Ole Miss, you can finally start spinning those wheels and putting all this crap behind them.
Zach, that's a good point. Now, listen, I just wrote "keep the bravery." Okay. Now, when you come on the show, when you come on the show during baseball season and there's a midweek loss, just remember, Big Daddy is going to circle back to keep the bravery. Yeah. All I'm going to say, but it's true though, right? Like, I've been tired of hearing, and I've kind of got obliterated. Look, I go on national radio shows during the week. Oh, Blake, they don't have talent. And I'm like, BS. They showed you they have talent. It just is putting it all together with a complete game. And I thought that they had their most complete game Saturday against Florida. Here's something funny, Zach. Hashtag from Greg Shea. How fast can you throw a shoe?
Fast enough to lose a football game. I let's see. I'm assuming slower than I could throw a baseball, and I definitely can't throw a baseball as hard as I used to be able to throw a baseball. So if I had picked up a shoe right now, maybe warmed up, I don't know, I could maybe get a good 40 miles an hour out of it, see how far I could send that thing.
Look, quick story about the shoe. Well, 2 questions. 1 story. I'm not sure if Evan or Clay ever told you about this Washington Parish Free Fair we have in Franklinton, right? But it's this huge fair. They have a lot of rides, a lot of stuff. Okay, so there's this one thing that they would always have, and you would get a baseball, and you would see how fast you would throw. Well, it was always rigged. Okay, cool. So I got a baseball, and I threw it. And I didn't throw it really that hard, and it was 55 miles an hour. And Jeff was like, really? Like, look, Mr. Noodle Arm over here. And I'm like, oh, my God. Okay, and so, I crow hot, and I threw it as hard as I could. Again, 52 miles an hour. And I could never heard the end of that for the rest of my life. But anyway, I thought it was interesting. Zach, have you ever, speaking of the shoe, and I know that we talked today, but there's something I just forgot about because it feels so long ago. Have you ever been in a game where something like that happens? Or have you ever seen something like that happen when in your playing time where it's like, hey, maybe a rally possum? I mean, something that crazy just happened?
We took the lead against Houston in a regional game, a game that we ended up losing. But at the moment, we didn't know we were going to lose. But it was the same kind of thing. Ball skips down the line at Alex box and gets like stuck in the wall. But the player was able to remove the ball, but instead he threw his hands up, which is kind of what they teach anyway. But we just roll the bases. Umpire goes out there and is like, nah, it wasn't stuck. And it was just too late at that point. We had earned a bunch of like very cheap runs doing that. But I do remember, I mean, a very similar situation. That was a playoff game for us.
Yeah, and that was a hell of a series. Look, Houston was good that year too. I mean, that was a hell of a series, and I'm gonna leave that one be.
Hey, do you remember it's not a scandal, but we would joke about it after the fact that it was a scandal. Do you remember what happened going into let's see. So you play like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you win all your games, you win the regional. But they had won the first game, so they forced the game 2 on Monday night.
Right.
Do you remember the story for the Sunday night?
Something happened. I remember it wasn't a player at Houston did something, right? And I can't remember what happened there.
I wish that was the case. Actually, it was a player from LSU, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus. It's a very easy thing to Google. Everyone knows who it is. But
keep going.
So he was a freshman that year, and they had forced the game 2. It still makes me sick to this day, but they had forced the game 2. He was a freshman. He was getting the start because we were rolling bullpen guys at this point. And one of the Baton Rouge media guys goes up and they're like, so, you got the ball tomorrow. What do you think about this team and about the game and this and that? And just T-ball interview question where it's just like, they have a great team. We have a great team. We're going to play hard. See you tomorrow. Right? No, this kid comes out and he says, I have the ball and I guarantee we're going to win. And we were like, oh, no. Everybody was in the locker room like, well, put it on the scoreboard now, because that immediately went straight into their locker room. You just know it. So he goes, he goes, I guarantee we're going to win. The guy didn't get an out. He got pulled in the first inning.
I remember that.
I'll never forget that.
Now that was bad. And that was a very hindsight 2020, looking back on it now, being in my older age, that was a hell of a series. Like really and truthfully, that was a fun series. Like, even though, things had gone our way, but that was a really fun series, at least in my opinion. I mean, it was a lot of good baseball played. Zach, look, I'm not going to say it's the biggest LSU rivalry across all sports because you do have LSU Bama in football, which I think just takes the cake of all of them. Maybe in the SEC right now, the biggest rivalry, LSU and Alabama. But to me personally, Ole Miss is number 2. I don't like Ole Miss. They don't like me. I don't like anything that they do. I don't like them in baseball, football, track, swimming, golf, Marco Polo. I want to beat the dog doo-doo out of them. I hope I hope that happens this Saturday. What do you think is going to happen Saturday with the Tigers going up against Ole Miss?
I think they win. I think ultimately LSU pulls it out. I'm hoping the flame from last Saturday kind of keeps burning. I do expect to see Ole Miss move the ball really well. I also expect to see LSU move the ball really well, and I want to see that our defense can still make plays. I don't know who is going to be in the starting lineup, but I want it to be whoever's on the field, they make their plays. They just do what they got to do. And I think that helps to kind of, like I was saying a minute ago, but that helps to get the ball rolling, and that helps us to be able to believe next season that we are a next man up kind of team. Like, no, we are that good top to bottom. I think that if you lose to Ole Miss, it really negates a lot of the positives that we saw against Florida. So I really hope that they just kind of keep this snowball rolling.
Zach, you answered really the second question and where I kind of want to go with it. We've talked about momentum for LSU all season long, right? Like, how do you get the momentum? The win Saturday brings that momentum back. for
Yeah.
you, was there ever a time where a big win kept momentum going or started it for an off season? Do you remember a time in your playing career where you're like, hey, if we win this game, it's going to really start turning stuff for us? Do you ever remember something like that happening?
I actually do, yeah. So my freshman year, we only lost 5 games at LSUE. We were a very solid baseball team. One of those games, though, was the first game of the World Series, a doubleheader, like a double elimination tournament. So we show up in the World Series, we lose game 1. We're like, well, here we go now, backs against the wall. We have to climb our way out of this loser's bracket. And I remember what ended up happening was we basically just adopted the mentality in the locker room of like, don't let us win one. Like, if you're going to send us home, you better have it happen in 2 games because we're going to catch fire. We were a team that had lost 4 games prior to yesterday, you know? So like we can win 5 games in a row. We already know it. We had won 19 in a row back-to-back times. So we were like, okay, don't let us win one. Once we win one, we're back in rhythm. And what ended up happening, we were losing, I think it was the bottom of the 8th, we were losing the game, and Stuart Turner ends up hitting a home run to take the lead. And then, we won every game after that. But yeah, it was the exact same moment of like, all we need is to feel like we have a little momentum. And once that happens, it's a wrap.
And correct my memory if I'm wrong here. Stuart Turner went to Ole Miss, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. How ironic.
How Rudy Poo is Stu for going to Ole Miss? Like, I might get a group text going here and be like, hey, it's LSU Ole Miss week. No, I'm not going to say that. But anyway.
He's a great dude.
He was
a great dude.
Great guy. Yes, exactly. Great guy. And look, a hell of a baseball player, by the way, too. But that's a good story because, I think LSU has to get this win Saturday to gain momentum. And we talked about recruiting, too. Look, it was a big day yesterday for recruiting for LSU. Did you ever in your career, like if you saw a big recruiting class coming in, you're ever like, dog, we got some dudes just coming in here. We're about to be solid. Because I remember at Southeastern, I would know that we would get some dogs. And I'm like, look, man, we're going to have a pretty damn good squad. I never really thought or ever it never really crossed my mind that, oh, this guy's coming to take my spot because I wanted to be a dog too. But does that also build momentum for a team, in your opinion?
I think it does in the sense of like, no, we got dudes. Like it kind of helps you. You just kind of feel like I don't know, like if you're with your toughest friends and you're like, if we got in a gang fight right now, we'd be set. You know, like I just think it's that kind of feeling of like, no, we got enough guys. What's funny, I always catch myself, and I do it every year because LSU's football recruiting classes are always great. And it's funny the way I view a recruiting class in a sport I didn't play versus the one that I did play. Because when I was on the roster, I would see we got dudes, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. Like, can't wait to see how they really look when they come in. And then when I see a football recruiting class that's as loaded as this, I'm like, oh, we're never losing again. It's just like they've already proven it.
Well, you know, we talked earlier, Zach, about not betting for the teams that we root for, right? That's the main reason. Look, we had a huge show last night. Everybody was fired up because of recruiting. Everybody was fired up because of the Florida matchup, and I get that. But that is exactly why I cannot even bet, because I'm going to justify and I'm going to try to be as objective as I can. But I'm like you, man. Like I looked at that class yesterday, and I'm looking at the defensive line and knowing some of the defensive linemen that they're going to be bringing in this class. And I'm like, man, if you're playing quarterback, you better get COVID during that week because you're going to get you're going to get killed, man. So
you are right.
I'm that's just my mentality on it. Zach, all right, we got one big question, and I know I kind of want to go here, and I know that we talked about it today. It's our out of sports question. The PS5 and the new Xbox have come out. Now, I know where you're going to go, so I'm going to give you the floor. Which console reigns over everything? Which console do you want? Do you have? And what will you always stick to? PS5 or Xbox?
So, okay, I could talk about this all day, so I'm going to shorten it. I am a PlayStation guy through and through. There was no question about whether or not I was going to even try to buy the new Xbox. I was going PS5 day one. I got it, and I never even looked at the Xbox. With that said, I also don't really buy into like the console wars because I think they're both really incredible machines. But I'm a guy who so I don't play a lot of like online shooters, which is what most of my friends play. For that, they swear that Xbox is better. I can't comment on that. I like to play like single player campaign kind of stuff. I like to play story based stuff. And where it currently stands and where it has stood for the last 6 or 8 years, PlayStation just dominates. Like Xbox has nothing they can compare to the exclusives. So I play those games, and that's pretty much what I go with. I did get my hands on a PS5 on launch day, and I've played it, I think, every day since.
So what kind of strings did you have to pull to get that PS5? Who did Paul Maneri call to get you a PS5? Because he's got some he knows some people.
He does. I wish I had strings like that to pull. I could have tried a lot less. No, I had to track. I was doing the same thing as everybody else. I was tracking those websites for stock, trying to place orders. I fought that thing for weeks, dude. And I ended up landing one at like 2 a.m. the night or the morning that they were dropping. I don't know how. It was because like the website I was buying from, they were only selling local ones for in-store only. And I had been losing to the bots every single day. So
yes, indeed.
I was like, this is my only shot because I'm only competing with other people who were in Shreveport, and I was able to get like one of those 6. I got really lucky though.
Well, dude, look, I'm going to tell you this. I was never really until I got to college, like first-person shooter and all that kind of stuff, like story games like you talked about. I never was really big on them until I got to college. So I flipped from Xbox to PlayStation because Xbox never had a baseball game. Okay. And so,
and the show is a big seller for me too. It really is.
Especially when in Julio Rufino Iglesias, okay, hits 876 home runs, okay, in his career in 10 seasons, that you have to go do it. Okay. I was the best third baseman of all time, best shortstop of all time. I was the best left fielder of all time and the best catcher of all time. I had to get rid of catcher. Never play catcher on the one person. It is the toughest thing to ever do, in my opinion. But definitely 876 home runs.
So you mean to tell me that MLB The Show can pronounce whatever that name is that you just said, but they can't pronounce Rufino?
No. So and I know we talked about this earlier today, but I hadn't changed my name to Big Daddy, like the nicknames, because they can never say my name. They have Ruffin, but not Rufino. Like, how can you do that, man? Just put an O at the end, But anyway, that's a big seller that they need to work on. Like, can I just put a mic in there and so I can use my last name, to say my last name? And I know that you probably have the same struggle.
Oh, I absolutely do. I am Zachary Person in my career that I've ever been in my life.
Yes, indeed. Hey, we have a question here, Zach, from Mr. Carl Dunn, huge LSU fan. And look, he's in the box there. He says, #AskZach, correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't you on the team for the 23-game winning streak for LSU? Were you on the team then, Zach? I don't think you were you?
I don't think so, because I feel like I would have remembered that. If I had to bet, I would bet that was probably the 2013 team that went to Omaha, and they had like an insane record. Actually, their record was so good that I was in JUCO at that time, to answer his question. Their record was so good that for the conditioning test, they used to base the running off of the amount of losses the year before. So that was how they would do it. Like, if you were a garbage team, the next year for like your conditioning test, you were getting run down. Well, that team had lost so few games that they had to like change it. They had to do like 1.5 because it would have just been too easy.
And shit bit Paul in the ass there, didn't it? That's fun.
He was like, well, we got to do something there. The test wouldn't have been hard.
Hey, look, listen here. And you can ask anybody that ever stepped foot in the town of Franklinton, Louisiana. My freshman year in baseball, we had this coach named Brett Beer. Just got done with playing football at Vanderbilt SEC in the SEC, and then he got done. He transferred to Southeastern, and then he was a coach at Franklinton. Zach, we beat Bogalusa in JV 28-2. 28-2.
Nice.
Okay, we ran. We had to do 100-yard lunges there and back. Okay, we had to do backwards lunges on a football there and back because our fields used to be connected. We had to run stadium bleachers. Okay, we had one error. We had to run foul poles for 45 minutes for one error. Okay. And I'm like, this is never going to end. Like, how can we beat a 28-2 and have to run this much? We go play St. Paul's. And for JV, 7 innings, in high school, that's a long time. We lost to St. Paul's 9-8. And I was for sure. I said to myself, Zach, I was like, I'm quitting. I'm going to Jeff. And I was like, I quit. I'm not playing anymore. Baseball sucks. I'm not doing this anymore. He never ran us. He never ran us after that. I'm like, what the hell were you trying to do here? He goes, I just wanted to see which one of y'all would break. Zach, in all honesty, that team, my senior year team, we got beat by the Zach Van Rosenberg Zachary team. We had the most wins in Franklinton baseball senior class in its history. Okay, just to tell you, and I made a joke there, but just to go and base like that off of sports, like the mentality that you have to have. And I think that bodes well for LSU football right now too. And just the simple fact of like, hey, that mental stuff that you have to click on in your head to be able to do stuff like that. And that's interesting that y'all went through that as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You made me think of a story. When I was a senior in high school, I don't remember what we were like 9-8 or something to start the year. We were not playing well. And I remember our coach, we were in a tournament and our coach brings everybody in the locker room right after in and out. So like first pitch is like moving. It's on its way. And he said, all right, guys, listen. In my however many years that I've been coaching, I have never in my life been 500 this many games into a season. So he said, so that tells me a couple things. One, something's wrong with someone in this locker room. And two, if we lose today, I will run y'all until someone quits. He said, we're going to get that guy out of here. We ended up winning the next 18 games.
Hey, dude.
Wanted to run.
Hey, running will get a team focused more than anything. Believe me.
Oh,
and me being musky, dude, I trust me, I do it. Zach, appreciate you coming on as always in your Thursday slot, man. Tell everybody where they can follow you on Twitter and everything that you got going on as well.
Twitter, Zach_Pearson. It's spelled like person. Instagram, Zach Person. Find me on there. I crack jokes and I like to live tweet sports games. So feel free.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, my man. We'll see you next week, and y'all have a good weekend. And look, we might not be doing a show next Thursday, so if I don't, I know the fans and people, listeners, you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Hey, you too, and everybody listening, y'all as well. Merry Christmas. See y'all later.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you later. All right. We have Mr. Jonathan Rifkind from Just Recruiting. The man is back. It's a reunion, but not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. We got to get to our great friends over at the Drake Law Firm. Personal injury, criminal defense, real estate, or successions. There's absolutely nothing that the Drake Law Firm can't do for you. Go see them today at 154 West Pine Street, Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Tell them Blake Rufino sent you by. And if you do, they'll give you a little bit of a discount. Give them a call today at 985-385-1826. That's 985-385-1826. And tell them Blake Rufino sent you by. He is back. The man is back. He is graduated. I haven't seen him in months. What's up, brother?
I almost want to kind of hide my face. It's almost too much pressure being back here with everybody. But it is, I miss the AYS fans. I miss the following. I miss the LSU bias more than anything, let me tell you.
I know, man. Well, look, Rifkind, I'm not sure. Well, I appreciate you having coming on with us tonight, man. We got a lot of recruiting stuff that we need to talk about. But look, I lost a bet, Rifkind. Okay, I lost a bet. If you can't see, I have to wear an Ohio State shirt because I said LSU was going to go above 500. Well, they're not. So I'm paying off my debts. So I have not flipped my allegiance from LSU. Just want to let you know that for sure.
You haven't flipped your allegiance, but you need to flip your camera because right now I'm reading ETATS O-E-I-Ho. It's currently back. I don't know if anybody's noticed this. I need to hold up the mirror to make sure that's actually an Ohio State shirt out here. I don't know if Bucknut has called you out on this yet.
Yeah, I'm going to have to flip my camera. That's a good point. And the AYS looks backwards. You're right. I'm going to have to do that. I'm definitely going to have to do that. Rifkind, it was a big day in recruiting, man. A huge day. Let's start out west and then make ourselves to the east. USC, and I know that you love that. I know that you like talking about the West Coast. I was surprised, honestly, Jonathan, in reference to what USC was able to put on, what Oregon was able to do. And something that I thought was interesting, too, is that USC always seems to find really good quarterbacks. In the Pac-12, who did you think had the best day in the recruiting world?
I mean, USC and Oregon by far. And look, by the way, just so everybody knows, Oregon has the top 2 recruiters ranked in the nation. Like, I was not surprised at Oregon. And by the way, Ty Thompson, 5-star quarterback out of Arizona, will be committing to Oregon in January. So they're going to get another 5-star in the books. It's going to boost their national ranking. Now, look, they're a top 6 recruiting class. And Mario Cristobal just got offered a pretty nice contract today, 5 years, $27.5 million. It would make him the 8th highest paid head coach in the nation. All these players want to go play for him. He hasn't officially signed. So all you Auburn people, you can hang your hat. Maybe that if Auburn can now, Gus Malzahn got paid $8 million a year. So Auburn is in a position to offer Cristobal more. I don't know if he's going to take it. His wife tweeted today that they're in Eugene to stay. So we'll see. But Oregon had the day that I expected. I expect them to be a top 6 recruiting class. And they were just that. And to be honest with you, the top 6, the top 7, really shaped out the way that I thought it was going to. I think that, look, everybody was like, oh, LSU's down season, and the whispers of what we may find out in the upcoming months with the program we're supposed to affect its recruiting class. That doesn't happen, right? Because this program, it's name brand recognition. It has great coaching staff. And look, every team has a bad year, right? USC hasn't been the winningest team in the Pac-12 since before 2010, and yet they're a consistent top 20 recruiting class every single year. They just don't put it together. LSU has one bad season in the most unlevel playing field that we have ever seen, with it being the COVID year, and everybody all of a sudden is saying, oh, LSU is going to lose all these recruits. That's not going to happen, right? And so we'll get to the LSU side here in a second. USC. Look, USC, the reason that they get such great quarterbacks is because they recruit in the best part of the country for quarterbacks, which is Southern California. Right. And you see JT Daniels out there at Georgia. They're much better with him. He's out of San Clemente. Matt Corral is out here in Southern California as well, who you guys are going to see this upcoming Saturday. I mean, the list goes on and on for the local products out here in Southern California. And USC, it's their backyard, so it makes a lot of sense. Miller Moss is going to be a really good 4-star for them. Jake Garcia decommitted, which I said was going to happen back when I was with AYS.
I remember that.
He was playing with Voldost out in Georgia. He's probably going to be committing to Miami. But other than that, I mean, USC, Graham Harrell, everybody wants to go throw the football. And when you run an air raid offense, you're going to get quarterbacks because they want to throw the football 60 times a game. Now, the air raid doesn't, as we have learned, really equate to NFL success. Now, Joe Burrow was in an innocuous situation at LSU, but every Mike Leach quarterback, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, really isn't an NFL talent or caliber talent. So the air raid really doesn't totally equate to the NFL, but guys want to go and throw the football. So USC and Graham Harrell's system attracts really, really good quarterbacks. So out West, those are the 2 programs. UCLA finally got into their top 6 in the Pac-12, but Chip Kelly, he doesn't recruit for stars. He recruits for scheme, and they had a really good season. I mean, they were a one bad pick, a really bad spot, and a comeback from Colorado from being 6-0 this year. So the Pac-12 is on the up and up. It's the most fluid conference in the nation, and recruits, we're not going to have all the 5 stars, but we're going to have some guys that fit the schemes of these teams that end up going and playing 100% every week.
Well, I'm going to circle back to USC in a little bit, Rifkind, in reference to, look, I don't know if you caught the show the other night. I kind of teed off on the committee about USC. I thought it was a little unfair. And look, I'm not a USC fan. I look, and especially in Louisiana, going back to 2003, when they made USC and LSU split that national championship, there's a lot of bad blood for no real reason between those teams. They've never really played. They don't recruit a lot of the same kids. So it was always a beef there, but we'll circle back to that one. Let's move over to the Midwest. In the Big Ten. And something that I was not surprised about is Ohio State being a top 2 class in the nation. But here's the question. Everybody wants Harbaugh out at Michigan. The separation between those 2 teams, not only from a player perspective and recruiting, but from a culture aspect. I mean, Rifkind, is this just getting to a point where Michigan just is not going to be able to get there unless they do some real overhaul there?
It's the Tom Herman complex, right? They're not going to fire Harbaugh unless they can go find somebody who they believe is better. Urban Meyer's not going to go coach at Michigan, right? Gus Malzahn is not a better coach. Kevin Sumlin was 0-5, had lost 370 days or for 370 days at Arizona. Like there's no coaching carousel. Hugh Freeze is not going to go to Michigan. The coaches that are on the market right now are not better than Harbaugh, or they're not going to want to go play or coach at Michigan. The Big Ten is tough. The Big Ten is a really, really tough conference right now, especially right with Northwestern on the rise, especially we'll see what happens at Penn State. Penn State is a sort of an interesting situation, but Indiana's had their best recruiting class of their entire football career up to this point, and we know what happens when Penix comes back. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with once again. Wisconsin, top 15 recruiting class in a full season. I think Wisconsin is another competitive team. The Big Ten is really hard and is a really tough conference to recruit in. Harbaugh has consistently been able to get good recruits, but he doesn't put the pieces together. It's the same thing that's been happening with Clay Helton at USC. You can have the best players in the country. You can have some of the top recruiting classes, but football is a team sport at the end of the day. Like a quarterback here and a quarterback there may make the difference. But as we're seeing at Oklahoma State with Chuba Hubbard, or at Oregon State with Jamar Jefferson, some of the best running backs in the country, you can have some of the best individual talent. But if you don't put it together, you're not going to win football games. And that's just what's been happening at Michigan. In terms of the culture, they want to make sure that they get a guy who will preserve the Michigan culture, who can go in and try and beat Ohio State, or at least give this team a chance. And they don't know if there's anybody out there right now that can. So again, it feels like the Tom Herman complex. Now everybody said at Texas, and I'm sure we'll get to that Tom Herman was out and that Urban Meyer was the guy. Well, Urban Meyer was never the guy. The guy was actually Mario Cristobal. They wanted to take Mario Cristobal away from Oregon and bring him to Texas. Mario Cristobal doesn't want to be in the Big 12. He wants to be either in the SEC or he's going to stay at Oregon. When I say the SEC, I don't even think he's going to go to Auburn. He wants Nick Saban's job. It's Nick Saban's job, or he's staying at Oregon. Unless a team comes in, if Auburn comes in with $12 million and he's the highest paid head coach in the country, then fine. But I don't think that's going to happen. So
yeah, they're not going to do that.
it's exactly. It's the same exact deal with Harbaugh at Michigan. Unless an NFL team swoops up Harbaugh, Michigan is not going to can him until they find somebody better that can preserve the culture and then also put the pieces together to win football games.
Well, two things. Number one, thank you for telling me to flip my camera. Okay, so we're able to do that. Okay, completely just was in my own zone. But I agree with you. Look, and I honestly, Rifkind, I got ripped up on this one a little bit, but why fire Gus Malzahn right before signing day? Made no sense. LSU was able to flip Armani Goodwin, top 5 running back in the class that they really needed, because look at the depth that they have. It was absolutely dumb. And sometimes, and look, really and truthfully, Gus Malzahn is 3-5 against Nick Saban. One more win away, and he's 500 against him. And there's nothing else that you can really do. And quite honestly, until Nick leaves, that Auburn job as a head coach, and I know that coaches don't think like this, but it's a lose-lose situation. Like, what would Cristobal want to go there and do? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's why I said, look, you're dominated at Oregon. Why would you leave? I didn't really understand that, but I'm right there with you. Look, let's go down south and make our way down south a little bit. I'm just kind of going to the top programs in the nation along conferences. I was really surprised by Oklahoma in the Big 12. The reason I was surprised by Oklahoma was because they got Caleb Williams. Some people believe the best quarterback in the country. Some people have him at least in the top 3, the top 5, whatever service you look at. I was surprised, Rifkind, that they were able to go out and get big offensive linemen. And something that they've really struggled with is being able to get guys in the interior. Do you think that their culture is starting to change along too? That, like, hey, we got beat by LSU last year in the playoffs. We got beaten before in the playoffs by Georgia, and we got dominated up front. Do you think that has been a focus for Lincoln Riley in these past recruiting classes as we've seen?
Absolutely. I mean, go look at the history of really good Oklahoma players. They're all skill position players. The problem is that it's not a winning formula, right? Like, you need to have an eclectic football team, and they have the skill position players, right? They have Caleb Williams. They have Billy Bowman, who's a 4-star defensive back. They have Mario Williams, who's a 4-star wide receiver. And they have a bunch of returns. Also, everybody remember, and I think that this went over a lot of people's head, this is a free year. You regain eligibility. We're going to see a lot of players, a lot of really good skill position players return to these programs. You go across the country. Odds are, if you're not a 1st or 2nd round pick, there's no reason to go. If you feel like your value could be higher by regaining your year of eligibility and playing, or your incentive to stay is greater than trying to go, they're going to stay. So
Right.
this year more than ever, we don't know what next year is going to look like. We have no effing clue what football is going to look like next year with players staying, with the dead period for recruiting is extended through April this year instead of early
Completely
March.
stupid, by the way. But anyway,
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, look, but you're right. Like, there's going to be a lot of extenuating factors that may change the outlook in the next few months than where it is right now. With that being said, Oklahoma, you're absolutely right. They've historically recruited phenomenal skill position players. Lincoln Riley has done a very good job with his intuition, finding the players that he move the football, but their defense has never been very good. And they've also had to deal with quarterback hurries. I mean, go look at the loss against Iowa State, right? Where did they get beat? They got beat up on the line. And they need to find a way now to remedy that situation if they want to go in and win the Big 12. The Big 12, look, it's not the most competitive conference, but it's a top-heavy conference. And Oklahoma is now being challenged at the top of that conference. I'm curious to see what happens against Iowa State on Saturday. But, I mean, look, at the end of the day, when you recruit a certain way and it only works to a point, that's when you have to start moving the needle in another aspect. And for Oklahoma, it's the offensive line. And if you don't, historically the coaches that don't, and they stick to their program, they stick to their system, and it starts to falter because, it's sort of the Chip Kelly complex at Oregon, right? Chip Kelly never had the top recruiting classes at Oregon, but he always recruited to the system. And eventually other teams figured out the West Coast offense. They started recruiting the West Coast offense, and it wasn't this brand new, unique system anymore. The air raid is now becoming a popular system. Mike Leach, everybody's, Mike Leach innovated, right? Like, now this is something that is not uncommon in football. So when a system is figured out, you have to find a way to change it and make it unique and start winning football games, or you're not going to be the coach there very much longer.
I completely agree with you there. And look, I don't know if some of our fans, I don't know if they'll know this, but you remember the Avengers, the very first Avengers movie by chance? And Tony Stark and them were battling because they were making big bombs. And then they were like, look, Thor came here. We didn't know who Thor was. And it showed that Earth was ready for another form of war. When you go to a playoff game and you go through a war and you get dominated, like physically dominated. Look, LSU beat, and I'm not saying this because this is an LSU show, but when you get beat that much, like up front, and you're just dominated, you're going to have to change up. And I think it's great by Lincoln Riley and what he did. Let's go to the ACC before we go to the SEC, because I want to look, we're a Southeast-centric show, and it's probably where a lot of our focus will be. You got to give it up to Clemson. I mean, I went and looked, Rifkind, before this show and today when I was doing some prep. Clemson has had some top 5 classes, but if you go over the last 10 years, their average is 7.5 to 8. They never get the top recruiting class. Talking about that system, they always seem to get their guy. They go all across the nation to go get some guys. It doesn't matter, California, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, California. They went and got Bo Collins, who I thought from California, who I thought was a really good receiver. They go all over. What is different about how Dabo recruits than everybody else? Can you kind of give our listeners a little bit of what Dabo does a little bit different than everybody, that it just kind of seems like, man, he doesn't have the top class, but they're a top team?
Well, there's a couple things. By the way, one of the shows that I do now, I have some access into some of the higher ups of these schools, and actually, I was on a call with some of the Clemson people, with Ryan Leaf, who I host the show with earlier this week, and we asked him about Clemson.
Just joking. Keep going.
You don't have to joke. I mean, you don't have to say just joking. He is a much better analyst than he was a football player. Let's just put it that way. Let's college football aside. I have lost in Guess the Lines every single week. I have lost to him. It has been heart-wrenching. Anyways, he has my number.
Experience, Rick. It's all experience. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Anyways, so look, Dabo runs a tight ship. You are not allowed to transfer into Clemson. You are when you commit to Clemson and you go to Clemson, you're playing 100% or get the hell out. They will drop you from that program. They don't care if you're a full scholarship player. They don't care if you're a 5-star or 1-star. You're there for a purpose. There is no BSing that program. And they know how it is. It is the creme de la creme, right? No JUCO transfers. Doesn't matter. They will not give you a second look. You are there as a freshman, and that is it. And that it builds up a culture, right? And I think the Clemson culture is now taking the nation by storm. Why? Because they're a consistent team. that is considerably improving each and every year. Obviously, they won a national championship, and now they have to go deal with a Notre Dame team that, honestly, it sucks that Ian Book isn't in the Heisman conversation, because Ian Book should be in the Heisman conversation. He hasn't done anything better than Mac Jones, per chance. Or I mean, look, it's a quarterback award, so we all know that it's probably going to go to quarterback. But what Ian Book has done at Notre Dame is better, I think, in full than what Kyle Trask has done in terms of the winning culture and the ability to spread the ball around than what Kyle Trask has done at Florida. But again, it's the name and brand. What Clemson does in the ACC, and the ACC is getting better and better every year, right? UNC is a very good program. Miami is the most overrated program now, in my imagination, in the country. Outside of how Florida dropped one spot after losing to you guys last week. So now they're the most overrated program. But Miami, inside and out, is a very overrated program. But they're still considerably talented, right? They get good recruiting classes. They recruit really well nationally, especially out of South in the Miami-Dade area. But Clemson always finds a way to be at the top of the conference. And I wouldn't be surprised if they lose a close one to Notre Dame, if we see a first ever 2-loss team get into the college football playoff. Because to be honest with you, I don't care if A&M has one loss and it's to Alabama. I don't care if USC is 6-0 and blows Oregon out of the water on Friday. I don't care if they decide to put in Cincinnati or Coastal or whoever. The only team that can compete with Alabama as a 4th seed is Clemson. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they lose to Notre Dame. And look, we've learned that the college football playoff committee is a bunch of BS, right? Like, they're going to protect their biases. And at the end of the day, like, if you hang your hat on your team getting in and you're not one of the blue blood powerhouses, you're just not going to have a good time. So probably don't make the end all be all getting into the college football playoff if you're a fan, because you're just going to be disappointed every single year. But Clemson, they make it the expectation. They've hit that expectation. Everybody wants to be a part of that team, and that's why they're recruiting really well, and they're playing their hearts out every week.
I agree with you. I don't think we're going to have to worry about Clemson not winning this game, in my opinion. I think they're going to win. But here's the thing. If Notre Dame loses even by 20, 30, it doesn't matter. In my opinion, there's no way that Texas A&M can get in the top 4, because you saw what LSU did to them a couple weeks ago with this same team. They only scored 13 points against them, and you cannot convince me that they're a top 4 team in the country, and I think Notre Dame should be there. Rifkind, let's move down south. Something that's going to get a lot of buzz, and something I want to get your take on, is that LSU has really struggled. I want an outside perspective, because when we look about it, and I don't know if you heard me and Zach talking earlier, but we look through it through one lens, right? And sometimes we can get very one-track mind and one-track focused on one team and be really biased. Were you really shocked? And I don't know if you were, if you weren't, and then I'll go to Alabama, but were you shocked that LSU was still able to pull in a top 3 class, even though they're getting their brains kicked in with some things that are coming out in the media, some that it's starting to look like LSU might be able to be okay here. But were you surprised that they were able to finish with a top 3 class?
No, I'm not surprised. And I sort of opened up the conversation with this, right? Like, at the end of the day, the top 6 teams in the nation in recruiting are also the only 6 teams to have ever won a football game in the college football playoff era, right? In the college football playoff.
Right.
And that sort of speaks to the way that recruiting works. Its brand, its likeness, its name, its connection. Why is Oregon such an attractive destination? Yeah, they have a guy who was bred down south, and they have one of the best recruiters who goes on the French Polynesia and recruits big men, but they have Uncle Phil writing the checks to the football team, right? They have a big connection, and they have a brand that athletes around the country want to go and they want to play for. LSU just won a national championship. Who cares? Yeah, they had, but again, this year is one of the craziest years ever, right? A lot of these kids got stripped of a full high school season. They're talking about not having high school sports in the state of California this year. They're not. Oregon and Washington are going to be stripped of it. It is a shit show for all intents and purposes nationally with high school sports. And the 38 states that have been able to get through the football season, good on you, but it wasn't easy. And I think that now that we're in the college football and we're seeing teams decline bowl games, everybody is saying we made it. I'm glad we did it, but it's time for it to be done, because it has just been a grueling, both mentally and physically, last few months for all these players. And high school is the same situation. And these kids just want to go. They want to go to a team that they have seen recently go and kill it. And LSU fits that bill, right? So no, I'm not surprised that LSU finished the top 3 recruiting class. Yeah, you lose a guy here or there, but you also flip a guy here or there, right? And the incentive is just too good. It's just too good after the recent years of LSU football for just because of one season with the craziest landscape of college football ever to be had to lose any of that credibility. It just doesn't happen. So no, I'm not surprised.
Well, and you know what it tells me too is I said this last night on the show, and I was saying it pretty much all during the day, tweeting it. Number one, it shows me how much national championships matter, right? It shows me how much connections matter, and it shows me how much a culture matters. Ed Orgeron's been criticized a lot about culture, but look, they held their hat, and Ed talked about this just before we came on. Look, we were telling them, look what we did last season. Look what we did last season. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. I don't think that they'll do what Joe Burrow did. I don't think that could ever be replicated in the way that they did it. But I think it's something that they definitely hang their hat on. Jonathan Rifkind from Just Recruiting is our guest. I'm not sure if you guys saw the comment, but if you have a question for Rifkind, hit us with the hashtag #AskRifkind, and we'll get all of your questions answered before we get out of here. Jonathan, I have been on record this year saying that I think that this Alabama offense, and we're going to talk a little recruiting, a little football, but this Alabama offense is better than last season's, even with Tua Tagovailoa, because the way that they're so balanced in running the football and throwing the football. Number two, this offensive line might be the best offensive line that I've seen in a decade, maybe a century. And I know that's a lot to put on one thing, but they can do so much. Then we turn over to the recruiting aspect and we go and look. They signed the top 2 offensive tackles, the top offensive guard, the top center in this class. Lincoln Riley, we just got done talking about him, but that's where the game's won and lost right now, right?
100%. And it's sort of happening across the country. I mean, I come from a Pac-12 background. I host a Pac-12 football show, right? What has been the big difference in the Pac-12 this year for some of the teams, namely UCLA, Utah, a team that had to replace 6 of its defensive players, both linebackers and in the secondary with freshmen. But they've still been dominating the run defensive game. What's been the difference? Well, they're up on the lines, right? And they're protecting the quarterbacks because they're recruiting offensive linemen, they're recruiting defensive linemen. And at the end of the day, we're seeing a shift in mentality and recruiting mentality because you're right. Look at the national champions, right? Over the last few years. Clemson, okay, you can excuse Clemson because that Clemson offense was really, really good. And their secondary was phenomenal, right?
And they had 4 defensive linemen that got drafted in the top 2 rounds, by the way. But
exactly.
Keep going.
Well, and that's my point, right? And then look at every other national champion around them in the college football playoff area. They all have had really solid offensive line and some of the best defensive linemen in the country. And that's just how it is. And at the end of the day, if you're not going to protect your quarterback, if you're not going to pressure the opposing team's quarterback, if you're not going to stop the run, because look, I mean, the air raid is it's applicable in some situations, but what's happening at Mississippi State? Are they winning football games? No. Okay, a little bit, but not enough to go and be competitive. What's happening at Washington State? Are they winning football games? Heck no. At UCLA, a little bit. At USC, okay, but USC also some of the best defensive individuals in the nation, so they were able to compensate. Most teams that are winning football games, they're strong up on the lines and they put the talent together to go win football games. And Alabama is patient zero. They've always been patient zero of solid recruiting up on the lines, and just being overall just behemoths. And that it's the SEC, man. This is big boy football. This is big boy football. You have to learn to stop the run. You have to sack a guy. And at the end of the day, like, if you can't push through a 360-pound offensive lineman, you're not going to have a job in this conference. And so you have to recruit applicably. And Alabama knows how to do it better than anybody.
I agree, and that's right on point. Rifkind, one more question, we'll get you out of here, but I greatly appreciate you joining the show. You know about the Ruffino's rants. You know how we get going. So I'm going to give you the platform. Look, I teed off on the committee, Tuesday night, in reference to not just USC, but other things and what they did. I teed off that they only dropped Florida 1 spot. I don't care, Rifkind, that Georgia got beat by Florida because JT Daniels didn't play in that game. And I don't know if there's a team in the country, and I'm being serious when I say this, I don't know if there's a team in the country with JT Daniels at quarterback right now that wants to see the University of Georgia. It's amazing that, and I don't know why this has just been the case, but when Joe Burrow came to LSU, it was, hey, nobody wants to play LSU right now. When JT Daniels comes to Georgia, nobody wants to play Georgia. I'm going to give you the platform here, man, on AYS. How bad did you think of the committee after they did that to USC and to Florida last week?
Oh, it's stupid. It is absolutely stupid. And actually, I just finished up. You guys can go and listen to it. It just got uploaded. My Believe in the Pac-12 podcast with Ryan Leaf. Yeah, we talk Pac-12 football, but we also talk about the college football playoff and we talk about the national college football landscape. Ryan, on Tuesday nights, he hosts on ESPNU the Reveal Show on SiriusXM. He hosted with Jason Horowitz. Every Tuesday, they have Reese Davis on. Reese Davis joins them as their guest as the committee announces their selections each and every week. Reese Davis is on that show discussing it. And Ryan told me today on our podcast that he and Jason and Reese Davis were speechless. Reese Davis is a play-by-play guy. Us play-by-play guys, we don't go speechless. We always have something to say. So when we're left speechless, you know somebody effed up. And look, at the end of the day, to be completely honest with all of you, it's a fraud. Like, it's 7 people in a room and they're a bunch of frauds because they say that this and that and the other matter. They say that Ohio State playing only 6 games matters, but yet USC also plays 6 games and they're not gonna penalize Ohio State, but they're gonna penalize USC, right? Oh, and on top of that, you go look at Florida losing to LSU. No offense to all you LSU fans, great win for you, but Florida drops 1 spot. Cincinnati doesn't play and they drop to 11th. Why does that happen? I don't get it, right? And then they look at, Coastal Carolina only moves up 1 spot. Why does Coastal Carolina move up 1 spot? Because welcome to the big dance. Why? The group of 5, by the way, is going to have their own playoff in the next few years. There's no reason. I agree with that. There is no reason. It's so stupid that they even tease Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina earlier with BYU. And Marshall when they were on. There's no reason. Why even put them in a top 25? Why give them this false hope? Because in 2017, UCF was a top 8 program and still didn't get in, and they all claimed national championship because they were undefeated. It's a bunch of BS, and it doesn't make any sense. So, look, this is. And by the way, everybody that says bring back the BCS and the analytics and computers also screw that. You weren't happy that nobody is going to be happy except for, 4, maybe 5 programs consistently every year. And that's just how it is. USC, they say, oh, USC doesn't have a top 25 win. Well, if you appropriately rank some of these Pac-12, right. But if you appropriately rank some of these teams that are on these schedules, because guess who evaluates the top 25 teams? It's you. So, well, we had what's his name?
That's a good point. I just put that together. That's a really good point. I didn't think about it like that.
So it's incredibly hypocritical. This past Monday, we had Jason Fitz as my guest on my show with Ryan Leaf. Awesome guy. Obviously, from all the ESPN stuff, and he made the point, that he and I discussed that point. I asked him, would you be surprised if the committee put Oregon at 25 this week? Because if Oregon's at 25 and USC beats them in the Pac-12 championship, well, then there's that top 25 win. And he said that they should. You'd think in theory that they should, but the problem is that the committee is so set on these 4 teams that they've already been selecting, that they've been hanging their hat on. Why would they want to give a quote excuse to another program to get in? Because then it makes them look bad. So at the end of the day, it's this egotistical labyrinth. And we all, as media and as fans, get absolutely lost in it. By the way, Iowa State has 2 losses. They're sitting at 6. USC would kick the doors in at Iowa State if they played each other in a head-to-head, right?
I agree.
It just doesn't make sense in terms of how they evaluate. But what does make sense is that we knew that this was going to happen. We knew that the committee was going to sit on their bias and that they weren't going to bite their tongues, and they were going to tell us exactly. Well, not tell us exactly. We were able to decipher exactly what they were feeling and what they were thinking when it was all said and done. And it is Ohio State, Alabama, either Clemson, maybe A&M's done. They told us A&M's ceiling is 5. A&M's ceiling is 5. It sucks they're not going to get to the SEC championship, and this is why maybe in the future we see a little bit of a conversation moving in the direction of, is there really a reason to have an East and a West or a North and the South in the Pac-12? Because it should realistically be the 2 best teams in the conference. And yeah, you don't want Alabama and A&M to rematch, but guess what? A&M's the 2nd best team right now in the SEC, and if they had an opportunity to play Alabama again, they would play. They got blown out the first time, but they'd probably play better. Colorado's the 2nd best team in the Pac-12. I know they lost to Utah last week. They should be their top 25 team in the nation. They should go be playing USC in the Pac-12 championship. But guess what? There's no fluidity nationally, and it completely penalizes the programs outside the top 4, maybe top 5 very consistently.
That's what I was about to ask, and I was going to say I lied because I did. But if this would have happened in LSU like it did last year, they kept LSU at 2 after beating 4 top 10 teams. And there was a big outcry, like, how do you put LSU at 2? Like, people were just freaking out about that. outrage in California from USC fans because like there would be in the Southeast? Because I know I'm not there, so I don't know, but I don't see the Twitter action that I normally would see. And again, it's a very Southeast bias, but is there an outrage in calling the committee, as we would call them here, Rudy Poo?
Well, you guys are much louder than USC fans are. USC fans are fair weather fans. They're the fans that leave in the fourth quarter or at halftime, depending on how the game goes. They don't typically stay throughout the game with the Coliseum. I think that the outcry is more from media members. I don't think the fans are upset. And it is unfortunate, right? USC has the best wide receiving tandem in the nation by far. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyler Varnes are incredible players. The problem is, though, is if you go and you actually look at the tail of the tape, USC should be 3-3. They need the fourth quarter to come back against Arizona State. They were down by 17 in the season opener to Arizona State. They're down by 12 to Arizona, a team that went 0-5 and fired Kevin Sumlin last week after losing 71-7 to Arizona. And they need the fourth quarter when they were down by 17 to UCLA last week to come back and win. So realistically, USC was, 15 minutes away in 3 of these games from being 0-6, or excuse me, to being 3-3 than being 6-0. So, I don't know if there's as much of an outcry, but the problem is, and I make this case, it should not be end-all be-all college football playoff. Because very typically, and as we've seen over the last every single year, actually, for that 4th seed, they probably get blown out by the 1 seed. And I don't want USC to be the 4th seed and then to play Alabama, lose by 50, and further the Pac-12 narrative that they did not belong in the college football playoff. I'd rather them be a 6-0 Pac-12 champion. They end up as a top 10 team, and then we can reevaluate. By the way, all these teams in the Pac-12 are probably going to decline their bowl bids. We already have 3 teams declining bowl bids. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that as a national thing because everybody just wants this thing to end. But people are pissed.
Maybe you're not looking bad for that bowl ban.
That's true. Well, you guys gave yourself an excuse on that one because I think a bowl ban shows more accountability than just saying, we decide we don't want to play.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, I think that the angst comes from just how the process goes, not necessarily that USC happens to be the undefeated team. But again, it's hypocritical to say, we don't care about Ohio State playing 6 games, but we care about USC playing 6 games because it's not an even playing field then. And you're not evaluating based on the same criteria. What you're doing is you're evaluating based on brand and likeness, which is fine. But then what you're saying is we really don't care about the other 21 ranked teams in the nation. We really only care about the top 4, maybe top 5 teams. And it's no fun for anybody else.
Yes, indeed. Jonathan, it has been absolutely phenomenal. You're always great as always, man. Tell everybody where they can catch all of y'all stuff and everything that you are doing with not just J&J Media, but everything, man. Every time I pop on Twitter, I'm like, dang, I got to go listen. I listen every day as much as I can. But Jonathan, tell them everywhere they can find your stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But it's always great to be back with the AYS crew. I see the comments. Buck, I know Bucknut, he's been calling me out here because he says that Oregon, quote, backed out of that game. Well, coronavirus backed out of that. And by the way, Bucknut, the Pac-12 allowed for non-conference games. The Big Ten, no. So you can't even get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. Anyways, no, Ohio State would slash.
Hey, this is the same guy I got in an argument with or a bet with, and I got to wear this. So you know what? Look, my man, he calls his shots, and I'm not betting this man anymore. I'll tell you that, but it's all good.
Fair enough. But listen, so at the end of the day, we have fun. I host the Believe in Pac-12 podcast with Ryan Leaf. He's freaking awesome. I have some other stuff working out. I'm going to be striking up a deal with Amazon and Roku. We're going to get my recruiting show up and running. They're launching a brand new 24-hour sports network. That's going to be awesome. That will be tentatively January 10th, depending on the terms of the contract. And then I will be also on SiriusXM starting in February. I will be doing a weekly a bi-weekly podcast with them, and then I will be on ESPNU as a rotating analyst as well, doing a bunch of different stuff on channel 84 SiriusXM ESPNU. So I'm all over the place. Hit me with a follow on Twitter at Jonathan Rifkind. My Instagram's kind of boring, so I mean it's j.rifkind, but you're not going to find anything of value there. And yeah, Blake, I appreciate it, man. It's refreshing. It's refreshing to have the AYS energy slapping me in the face here in San Diego.
Hey, well, if you ever want to ESPN or Ruffino's rants on ESPNU or anything like that, just let me know. I'll get fired up and we'll get
you
it.
know, it's you know I would. It's not up to me. I don't know if you got to get something good enough for those. I mean, look, you are good enough for those producers, but it's whether or not that they're okay with all of the fallacies that you like to throw in there every now and again.
Oh no, I go on national radio every 4 times a week. No, I wouldn't do it.
I still listen to those.
This is my domain where I get to let the Rudy Poos fly as they may.
I love it, man. You keep up the good work, and I catch your stuff on Believe all the time when they post the clips, and whenever I throw in a comment here or there on Periscope when I see you pop up on Twitter.
Absolutely, man. Thanks, Jonathan. We'll talk soon, my man. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Hey, and have a good Christmas and happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a happy, healthy New Year.
You too, man. All right, that is Jonathan Rifkind from Just Recruiting. Guys, we are going to call it a night. We will see you back for the LSU postgame show Saturday. Hopefully the Tigers will come out victorious. Y'all have a good night. See you then.